Hello everyone and happy holidays. We're just one day away from New Year's Eve. The work is slow, so I have more time to focus on some TryHackMe rooms and develop my cybersecurity skills. So during those days I had the chance to try a great TryHackMe module, which is initial access, and part of it is the weaponization room. A very interesting room focusing on red team techniques that allows you to learn how to build custom deliverable payloads in order to obtain access to other systems. Now, this room focuses on payloads that will be delivered to the target, and they will be run by your victim, which means that most likely they will be delivered by some kind of social engineering act. Generally, when you want to exploit a system, many of the times you will craft a payload, and but this is not enough. This payload needs to be run to your target machine in order to gain access to it. And this can be done in three ways. The first way is the attacker accessing this payload that he has created and inserted. For example, when you try to hack a server, you might get the chance to upload an ASPX file in a Microsoft server or a PHP reverse shell, and when you access that file, you actually trigger your payload yourself, and it starts a connection back to your attack machine. Now, another way is to utilize automation tasks. Now, automation is everywhere around us at this moment. It's in software development, where you can utilize CI/CD techniques in order to improve your workflow. You can schedule tasks, or you can automate network and host maintenance. And this is actually a very good entry point if you want to exploit a system, because many times misconfigurations in automation tasks may allow the attacker to insert malicious payloads that will be automatically run by these tasks in the target system and will help him to gain access to them. And the third way is the way that this room focuses on. It's about the user of the respective terminal running the payload that you send them. And as we mentioned before, this is what happens mostly nowadays. Social engineering is always used by APTs and hackers. So you might receive a maliciously crafted PDF file or Microsoft Office file, or a link leading to downloading malicious code, which will actually help the attacker gain access to your system. So let's see. At this video, we will focus on solving the final task of this room. It's right here, the Practise Arena. We have already deployed our system. Right here you can see various techniques of crafting your payloads, and that actually might sound complicated, but there are tons of resources in the internet. What you might have noticed so far is that this room focuses on crafting payloads for Windows system, and that happens for a very good reason, because most of the users nowadays actually do use Windows. Now, you might know that most of the servers and run in Linux or Unix systems, but actually the laptops or the desktops that the users do, for example, employees of a company, are in their vast majority Windows systems. And as we mentioned before, this room focuses on deliverable payloads that will be opened by employees or by the users by users generally. So we have deployed our machine, and we are going to solve this using the exact same payload. We're going to use an HTML application. And now an HTML application, you can read all about it here. We're not going to focus too much because there are tons of resources on the internet to look for. But what's interesting here is that we are going to solve this challenge using two different tools. Now the first tool will be the Metasploit Framework. It's one of the most popular tools in cybersecurity, and even rookies learn about how to use it. There are tons of capabilities, and you really have to dig and dive deep into it to learn everything. So we will begin by, crafting our payload and delivering it with the Metasploit framework. Now, as you can see here, we have some instructions, and it's very easy to do so. So we're going to actually utilize this module right here. This module allows us to launch a server that will serve an HTA application, an HTML application, which will be maliciously crafted by us. So let's see. We can use this, and we actually have to see our options. Now, here we have the serving options. We have to configure our server in order to send a file. We have the listener options, and most importantly, we have the payload options. Now, we are going to begin with the right payload, and right here we can see that we have the right payload because we want to exploit a Windows system, and we want to get Metasploit shell to the target host. Now, we have to configure the serving host by using set srv host, and we will have to insert the IP address that will serve this payload. In our case, it's the IP address provided by the TryHackMe VPN, which in my case is that one. Then we have to also set our listener. We have to set again the IP address that will listen for incoming connections, and we have to set the same IP address since we're in a virtual environment and we use a VPN for that specific reason for our attack machine, our Kali Linux distro, to be able to communicate with the vulnerable machines. And since we have the right payload, we're actually good to go. So we can actually clear our screen and simply run our server. Now, notice that this module right here will do everything for us. So first it will craft the malicious HTML application. Then it will launch the server that will assist us in serving this maliciously crafted application to our target. And finally, it will also set up a listener in the background, as you can see here. It's the reverse TCP handler, so that when our target opens this malicious application, we will be able to get a connection back. So here we can see the URL of the server, and we're going to upload this to, we're going to send this to our target. Now, as you can see here in the Practise Arena, we have a test environment. We have this link right here, and here it's a user simulation. This actually means that when we insert this malicious link here with a malicious HTML application and we send it, the vulnerable machine will automatically visit that link and will trigger our payload. But actually, when we use this HTML application, we will actually have to send a phishing mail to our target and trick him into opening and downloading this file. So we can grab the URL here, copy this, and alright, send it here. So we can actually press send, and link has been visited. We can go home. And if we open back our MSF console, we will see that the payload has been delivered and the stage is being sent to the vulnerable machine. And right here we can see that we have one Meterpreter session opened by the vulnerable machine. And if we press enter, we can see with the sessions command that we have this right here, session. And if we interact with it, we can actually see that we have a Meterpreter shell. So let's use a simple command. We can use sysinfo and get basic information on this machine. We can also launch a shell, and we will get a CMD shell where we can see the users, and we can go to desktop where our flag is. So we have used Metasploit Framework in order to launch our attack and craft our malicious payload, which will be opened by the target. And here we are, we have completed the task. We can type the flag and see what's in there. Now, we also will get the chance to use another fantastic tool, which is called Powershell Empire. Now, Powershell Empire is briefly introduced here, is actually a command and control framework. Command and control frameworks are fantastic tools that provide a very easy way to gain access to the systems, but on top of that it allows us to perform easily some very important post-exploitation tasks, and they provide us with the opportunity of gaining persistence to the system. This means that many times by using C2 frameworks we will be able to maintain our access to that system even if it shuts down or it reboots, which is very important for various attacks. So there is a brief explanation of what PowerShell Empire does here, but there is also a very nice PowerShell Empire room here, which I highly recommend. Of course, the installation instructions are a bit off here, so I will put a link on the right. Installation instructions are actually much simpler than this, because this repository is outdated and it will not correctly install PowerShell Empire in your system. But let's focus on our attack. Now, PowerShell Empire right now has two different tools. It has a server which runs in the background. You have to launch it with this command right here. And we also have the client where we can perform all of our actions. So as you understand, PowerShell Empire is just like the Metasploit Framework, is a CLI tool. You can, for example, see all the available commands here, and you can see, for example, your listeners, and you can get another help menu here. If you want to go back, you can press back and you will go to the previous menu. Generally, it's a very nicely crafted and presented CLI tool. But on top of that, and what's more important, is that PowerShell Empire has another fantastic GUI tool built on top of it, which is named Starkiller. Starkiller is a free GUI app that aims in enhancing the pen tester's experience in PowerShell Empire. So it offers a very nice graphical interface, and you can actually create listeners and stagers much easier, and you can actually configure them much easier. So let's skip the words and go for our exploit. So right here, the first thing we have to do is set up a listener. All right, so we press create and we choose one type of listener. There are many types of listener. For example, you can see an interpreter listener, or you can see OneDrive redirectors. Right now we're going to set up a different listener. If you remember, we had an interpreter listener in the previous tool, and now we're going to use an HTTP listener. Right now we can set a custom name here. We have to set the correct IP here, which is the TryHackMe VPN IP. We have to set a port. Now, if we try to use the 4.4 port, it will be rejected because it's already being utilized by Metasploit Framework. So we're going to use the 4.5 port, which is free. And we don't actually need to tweak anything else here. Of course, there are many options here, as you can see. But since this is a simple task, we can actually create our listener without tweaking any more options. And we can see here that we have an active listener. So we have created a listener that expects connections back, and let's see if it will work. The next thing is to set up a stager. Now the stager is our payload. As you can see, this is a very nice suitcase icon here, because it's actually our vehicle to gaining access to the target system. So let's create here. We can create, as you can see, we have many different kinds of payloads. We have multi-system payloads. We have payloads specifically designed for OS X. And we also have many payloads pertaining to Windows systems. We have shellcodes, reverse shells, macros on Microsoft Word, but we have BAT files here. They're very important as well. But right now we are going to focus on our previous payload, which is an HTML application. So let's set up a name, and we can name it THM from TryHackMe, since we're doing a TryHackMe. Now we have to set a listener here. So we will actually select the listener we have already created. Leave this on because our payload needs to be basic for encoded. And right here we can see some very interesting options, which we can see. We can obfuscate the file. Obfuscation helps us achieve our goal with much better possibilities, because obfuscated payloads are much harder by antiviruses to be spotted. Now let's set a nice name here. For example, we can say invoice, all right? And so far we're okay. So let's submit our stager. We have created our stager. It's binding to the listener we have previously created, and right now we need to download. As you can see, it's conveniently named as invoice. This is the name we gave it, txt. It's a very nicely obfuscated payload, but actually the malicious code is right in there, and we can save it to our desktop. All right, and we're good to go. But one last thing is that we need to upload the file to this specific link. But before we upload the file, we need to serve it. So we're going to use our command line and get root desktop, and we can see that it's right here. So we can launch a very simple Python HTTP server, and we can serve our payload. So let's go back to user simulation and input our payload. Now we use the 8000 port here because by default the Python HTTP server serves right in this port. We can also specify which port we want to use, and that's right here, invoice.txt. And if we send a payload, link has been visited, we can also confirm it that it has been successfully delivered. And let's go back here. We have a new callback from our super agent. We can see here that we actually have now access to the system. Our payload, our stager, it has done everything for us. It has created the ground. It has done all the job, and we have a connection back. Now, here you can see by clicking on this agent, we can see the true power of PowerShell Empire. Right here, for example, you can launch shell commands. For example, you can launch who am I. So once you run it, it's going to the tasks right here, as you can see. And here you can see that we have the result back. So we are this right user, we're THM of this desktop. What's more interesting is that we can interact with various modules. For example, we can use impersonation of users and processes. We can also try to steal secrets, passwords. We can use Mimikatz to dump hashes. There are many interesting modules which are actually the true power of PowerShell Empire. We can launch keyloggers, Kerberos, we can scan ports, we can utilize the registry to our advantage. We can delete and copy files, we can download and upload files. We can run SharpHound very easily. Tons of great modules. As you can see, there are tons of modules here. Now let's try a simple one. Let's try to get system. Now the very same module can be found in Metasploit as well. So let's click submit here. Let's see if it gets the system. All right, it's scheduled, and we can see in the tasks, well, right here we have successfully upgraded our privileges to the system. So you can actually see that we have tons of modules which can be run by a GUI environment instead of inserting commands like we would have to do in Metasploit Framework. Now another interesting and very useful task is the file browser here. Now as you can see here, we can actually try and have visual access to the file system. For example, we can attempt to retrieve directories, and that is very important. As you can see, we can have access to many things. So we can go to users, all right, here we are, and this is the user we have to focus on. So let's attempt to receive the directories of the THM user. Oh, that's interesting. Here we go. We have the files, the contacts. See, this is very useful. We can also go to the desktop. where our task says the flag is. And here we have the flag. We can actually download and upload files here, which is very convenient because we can do it all at the easiness of a GUI and not by typing commands. And this is also very important because many times when we get a reverse shell, it's very easy to lose access to that shell by mistyping a character. So here you can get a small taste of the true power of PowerShell Empire. For example, we can also, let's utilize, let's use Mimikat here, which is a very famous tool, although we already have system access. But you can see, how modules work, and right here, let's see. Yeah, it is not launched yet, or it is not yielded any results yet. Anyway, you can actually do many things with PowerShell Empire. Now, thanks for watching. This was a small showcase of this very nice TryHackMe room. On top of that, there are many other payloads that you can try, and you can try them with both the Metasploit Framework or PowerShell Empire, or even by using handcrafted payloads. Now, thanks for watching. I wish you a happy new year, and always keep hacking and improving your skills. Thank you very much. Be safe.